As we think about independent contractor relationships, and we're thinking about the types of service contracts you have, so the people whose services you use, one issue that may come up is non-solicitation agreements or non-solicitation provisions as part of a larger agreement. What is non-solicitation? Well, let's talk about what is solicitation. Solicitation is when you ask for business. So a non-solicitation provision essentially means somebody cannot ask for business. Now, solicitation is usually defined in the contract. And usually, it's not just asking for business, it's doing business together, agreeing to do business together. It doesn't really matter if it's an ask. It just is, do they do business together? So basically, it's a contract that says two parties or more will not do business together. Well, when might this matter? Let's say that you are an ad agency and your client, a company, comes to you and says, we'd like your help in creating ads. And your agreement is that for all of those ads that run, you will get paid 10% whatever the client spends on ads. Now let's say over time the client says, you know what, we've kind of gotten the hang of this. And so rather than going to you and then going to the various advertisers through you, we want to just cut you out. We're going to go straight to the advertisers and save the 10% fee that we're having to pay you. Well, that may not feel fair to you. You made these introductions. You got everything set up, and as soon as the client was equipped by you to operate, the client decides to cut you out of the deal and go straight to the advertisers. Well, in this case, you might put in your agreement with the client a non-solicitation provision, which says the client can't do business directly with the advertisers. You might also have an agreement with the advertisers that says, if any of my clients come and do business with you through me, you can't do business with them. Now, usually there's a period of time when this expires, but that could be a year, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years. It really depends on the circumstances. So a non-solicitation is usually where one party is making introductions and you are wanting to make sure that they don't cut you out of the deal. Now, there is a type of non-solicitation provision that is illegal in some states. In 2024, the state of Minnesota said most non-solicitation provisions are illegal, which means they're not enforceable. Now, there's a carve-out or an exception for tech services, but for all other companies, there is a ban on non-solicitation provisions. They won't be enforced. This is a really big deal because imagine you have an advertising company like we just talked about and you don't want to get cut out of the deal. Well, now, under Minnesota law, that provision is not enforceable. This is also relevant with employees. There are a number of states throughout the country, California and Minnesota are two of them, where it is illegal for an employer to ask an employee to sign a non-solicitation agreement. It's not enforceable. It is prohibited by law. You might think, well, why would an employer want to do that? Let's say, for example, the employer is a company that sells stuff. So they buy products from a manufacturer and then they sell to customers. That's a very important relationship. Now, if they hire an employee who then starts managing that account, managing who they're selling to and who they're buying from, that employee might say to themselves, hey, I don't need this company anymore. Now that I have loyalty of the relationship, I can quit the company, open my own business, and I keep all the money. I don't have to share any with the original company who worked to set up this relationship. Now you might say to yourself, that doesn't seem right. If the original company spent years investing in setting up these relationships and trying other relationships that failed, and they put a lot of money and investment into that, and then they trusted you to work in the role of managing those relationships, you might say, it doesn't feel right, it feels unethical to just cut out the employer and go operate on your own. That's the argument for non-solicitation provisions. The argument against them is that it is an unfair restraint on a person's right to do business with who they want to do business with. So the idea, when legislators ban non-solicitation provisions, their concern is we don't want to stop people from doing business with each other. It's a free country. We should have a right to do business with whoever we want. So we're going to ban non-solicitation provisions. The counter-argument to that is, well, nobody's being forced to sign these agreements. They're usually being paid good money or being offered significant opportunities with a position of trust in order to proceed with this non-solicitation provision. So whatever your position on whether non-solicitation provisions should be banned, that doesn't really matter. What does matter is, does the state you're operating in have a ban on non-solicitation agreements or non-solicitation provisions? So that's an important item to attend to. The other takeaway here is to think about whether there are certain contracts of yours where you should have a non-solicitation provision, where it's important that the people that you're bringing to the deal don't somehow cut you out of the deal in order to save from having to pay you money. It's easy to confuse non-solicitation provisions with non-compete provisions. The key to remember is a non-solicitation provision prevents others from cutting you out of a deal by doing business with each other directly. This could be employees, contractors, or others that are involved in a deal. Now, if you'd like to know more about how to avoid trouble like this, I have a free resource at aaronhall.com/free. I provide information for business owners of small to mid-sized companies on how to avoid common legal problems. That includes a PDF. It includes videos talking about important issues. I'm Aaron Hall. I'm an attorney for business owners and entrepreneurial companies. If you'd like, subscribe to this channel so you can get more educational content like this.